Ladies, gentlemen, friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Monday Discourse for today, 4/19/2021. I'm your host, Tristan. Cheers. Having myself some hot chocolate on a kind of chilly day out here today. That's good. That's good stuff. I also want to thank, before I get started, I want to thank Appalachian Left, the Appalachian Left, for subscribing while I was doing the preamble or doing the splash screen, so much appreciated. All right, a little bit of spiel to get through. First of all, I am Tristan. I'm the host of Step Back and Tristan Won't Shut Up. I stream on Mondays and Tuesdays, Mondays from 12 till 2, the stream you're watching right now with Mia Mulder, who will be joining us just after I finish this spiel. And on Tuesday nights from 7 to 9, I do Step Back Tonight. All of this is Eastern Time. And that's just with me. So that's fun. Just a second. I gotta minimize this picture of myself because it's ridiculous. All right, there we go. I think that's... Oh, what a horrible mistake I made. I have to... There we go. There we go. There's the little animation thingy. All right. I go by he/him pronouns, and if you can find my work at stepbackhistory.com or tristanwon'tshutup.com. And if you want to support my work, you can help out at patreon.com/stepbackhistory for as little as 86 cents a month. Or sorry, 84 cents a month with a yearly subscription where you get to see videos early and you get to see them without the sponsorship breaks and stuff like that. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can give a Twitch Prime subscription over on Twitch, which costs you no money and basically, helps creators make their stuff. So if you don't use it every month, Amazon just keeps your money. So I recommend you use it on someone every month. And if it's me, I'll be very grateful. As far as content to expect soon, I have coming up, it should be a very busy next couple weeks. I have a video that I'm in the process of editing right now that will be probably coming out later this week. I'm hoping to be done by Wednesday, and then it takes a couple days for the sponsor to approve it. So patrons will probably see it on Wednesday, maybe late, depends upon how scheduling goes, and which means it might be released on Friday or Saturday. And then I have another video that I am just finishing the script on right now. So it'll be finished. The script will be in its final form today, filming tomorrow. Take a few days to edit, so that'll come out sometime next week. Good stuff. If you want to submit questions for future streams, I have a little chat thing, or I have a little link where people can send their stuff to. I'm just gonna put that in the chat right now for you guys. And yeah, if this is your first time here, the history is God. Yeah, I'm trying something. Maybe I'll talk about it a bit with Mia, but I'm trying a thing. I took the history out of the title, which is honestly, this was the original name of Step Back. Step Back History was like a thing that I just added because people just started calling it that. But I'm changing sort of the order in which I do things to sort of steal from more successful creators in the education space. So I'll talk to you guys about it. If not today, then tomorrow. If this is your first time here, make yourself known in the chat because honestly, dudes, like, we have a great community. So, joining in is, highly, highly enjoyable. I think that was with everything out of the way. So let's call Mia up in here. Up in her.
Hello.
Hello.
Wonderful. Everything seems to be in order. For once. On
Yeah.
the first... Hi, Tristan.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It is Monday. It's been a long Monday, but I've had a good day, good weekend, good vibes. Good vibes all country here on 108 WTCR.
Excellent. Wow, that's a deep cut. Um,
Did you get it? Did you get my weird?
next up, I've got a girl.
Yes. Oh my
Next
god!
up,
I can't believe-
McGruff.
It's not
With
my
Live
grandpa,
Like
it's
You're
not the
Dying.
Dog.
Oh
God,
man,
that's good. God, that's so good.
that show is
Shit.
very funny.
It's very funny. I rewatch it like once a week, and it's never not funny. We're talking about My Brother, Me, the TV show, by the way, which is some of the best TV that was ever
Yeah.
made, and now it never. And then that's all we got.
Yeah, 6 magical episodes. And that episode was specifically where a fan wrote to them trying to get them to convince his girlfriend to let him buy a tarantula. So they went through an entire process of trying to rebrand tarantulas into Ranchos, 8 Legs of Justice, and basically try to
Eight Legs of Justice.
Yeah, they tried to rebrand tarantulas in order to make them more appealing so that she would let him get one.
Yeah, it's great.
Including a tarantula parade in their like tiny city in West Virginia. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, but besides that,
while you hanging 10, the ranchers are hanging 8, and you know what? The ladies love the spiders. 8 Legs of Justice.
so good. Okay, so first of all,
Legendary.
you have yet to say your name or who you are or what it is the things that you do.
My name is Mulder. I'm a My Brother, Me fan YouTuber. I make videos about My Brother, Me, and I'll only speak about how much I love Ranchos and the TV show My Brother, Me. No, I'm kidding. I make videos about political stuff, political video essay things with through the lens of history, which are good, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They are good. I'm currently working on a video that's like 8 months long, and you need like long-term supplies in a small camp to watch all of it.
Nice.
I also have a podcast called Leech Fest, which is a medical history podcast, which is good. It's more like straightforward like academic history and medicine. It's good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, my cat keeps trying to stick her face into my hot chocolate.
Just like fully immerse.
She's
into
like,
the chocolate.
yeah, well, I guess she's bored. And when she's bored, she decides that she wants to lick all of my food and knock all of my stuff off of the desk and chew on all my cables. Those are all her favorite activities. Those are her top 3 faves. And so that's kind of her vibe right now.
Perfect.
So
that's how cats are supposed to be.
yeah, she has a pen in her mouth right now. So what could we have, like, there's been a lot of internet in the last week.
As always, there's a lot of internet. The internet never ends, it seems.
Yeah. I got comments on my reframing or I changed Step Back History's name to Step Back, and it has caused a ruckus. In that,
It's called a ruckus.
more than 0 people have noticed now.
Well, I mean, no, it's a change, and people will notice it. History is over. Francis Fukuyama was right.
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, Step Back was originally just called Step Back, and then people started calling it Step Back History for reasons that I don't understand. I guess Step Back is also a reference to something in basketball. I don't know. But either way, I decided to go back because I think I want to do a... Phoebe, you're going to knock over the hot chocolate. I'm going to put it over here now. Only delay the inevitable. But the reason is because I want to make more stuff that's closer to like what you're doing than what I'm doing. Because I've learned that the number one most successful thing for my content is to not talk about, or is to not brand it as talking about history. So I'm going to, instead of doing the history topic and then find the thing to make it applicable in our time today, I'm going to start with it being a history or a video about something going on now, and just be informed by the fact that I am history educated.
Yeah, I feel like people don't want to learn history if unless it's war related or about Hitler, and like people love history, but they don't want to be aware that they learn history. They want to be tricked into learning history.
And
Like
the people who do want to learn about history brings in a certain type of crowd. Not that you guys aren't
Yeah.
great, but my audience is like 80% women or 80% men, and there's been like there's legit things like about how women have been very overwhelmingly like ostracized from history because they're not usually in it a whole bunch, and just like becomes a haven for armchair generals and yeah.
I love that expression, armchair generals.
Armchair
Yeah.
generals and people who just in very white male straight centric spaces that I would like to I don't think my content particularly appeals to. And what did you okay, she decided to start knocking over other things.
He's bored. She it's time for revenge.
Yeah. So that's the hope. We'll see. I have these two videos are sort of still in my style now, but starting next month, things will start changing. My first video of the new style is going to be about loneliness
Oh, interesting.
and capitalism and making how capitalism makes us lonely.
That's an interesting topic. I feel like people talked about that like a little bit, but it never really like I didn't really hear any like advanced takes on it. I'm
Well,
looking forward to that.
in today's day and age, I feel like we're feeling that pretty hardcore.
Yeah. During the still uncertain times.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh man.
certain but uncomfortable times.
I love that my little province is starting to get international recognition for the greatness that it has. There was a Washington Post op-ed calling for the resignation of our premier, and CNN did an entire piece about how poorly Canada was handling the vaccination campaign, and particularly how bad the variants are just spreading like wildfire across British Columbia and Ontario. By the way, thank you, Britain. Thank you for the first present you brought here was the genocide of the indigenous people, and now your second present, the B117 or whatever variant, has been real fun here.
Yeah, like at least you're having a conversation about the fucking variants. Here in Sweden, we're still trying to recognize that the coronavirus like is a virus. Like we're still like in that stage.
There's
So,
still like
you know.
with just an
There's
excessive
a
of
virus?
your humors are overly dry and hot. We're going to need you to eat ice cream to bottle up to what's it called? To make sure to cool down your blood so that you don't have COVID anymore.
Yeah, the plague doctors have been really working hard with the leeches over here.
Oh man, there's this new TikTok trend that I think you would love so much, which is bardcore music.
Yes, I know exactly the trend you're referring to.
So it's
the
just
best.
it's sort of like making pop songs, but like covering them with like medieval instruments, and it's just like people dressed in like the Middle Ages dancing to this music while like talking about like when the king lifts the quarantine and you have the ability to drink mead outside or something like that.
Yeah. When your village hath been blessed by the Pfizer potion.
Yeah, it's fucking great.
It's good. I love that stuff.
Phoebe found a ball with a jingle bell inside now. I don't know if you can hear that a little
God, she's living her best life today.
bit. Yeah, she's having a moment. It's good because she's like 11, and so anytime that she gets up and does things, I'm happy.
It's wonderful.
Can cats eat chocolate products? I know it's not safe for dogs. I mean, I don't think it's like recommended, but she just like the cup is empty. She's just licking like a little bit of the outside of it. I don't think it's like when you give a 6-year-old peanuts where they just instantly die. That's what I'm learning.
Yeah, yeah, that's basically how that is.
You know that M. Night Shyamalan movie where the plants are like getting revenge on the people?
Oh, yeah, one of the stupidest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Yeah.
That's what the peanuts are doing against humans.
Yeah. God, what a movie! The fact that that movie happened. I've seen that movie twice. Once like in theaters because I wanted to give it a shot, I guess, and once like a few years ago when I just wanted to see how bad it was, and it really is as bad as it is. It's literally people just running from the wind and plants. That's it.
Yeah.
Like there's no monster. There's wind. Like there's a draft and the music becomes scary. It's so stupid. Anyway, what has happened otherwise in the discourse other than the U.S. is back to its normal bullshit?
America is back to its two favorite hobbies: murdering people of color and mass shootings. Both of which we've had apparently in the last like 45 days since they started opening stuff up a bit more. There has been on average more than one mass shooting per day. So
It was like 2 days ago or something like that, and they had like 6 mass shootings in like the span of 2 days.
Yeah, America's back to normal. And then also
it truly is a Biden presidency after all.
Yeah, and just the police are just having the fact that like the police are like just like murdering children now and getting away with it, and then like the Chicago mayor Lori Lightfoot and the police told a story about how this shooting went down where they murdered a 13-year-old child. And then the video came out of it, and it was the exact opposite of everything they said. And it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, it's almost like cops lie.
Yep.
Weird.
Yeah.
I love the fact that like body cameras are not to like support cops; they are to keep an eye on cops.
Mm-hmm.
Like in an ideal world, they would be like to help prevent crime and give evidence to stuff like that. Like no, they're literally there to just make sure that the cops don't kill you, and if they do, that they face any kind of accountability. And even if they have fucking cameras, nothing's probably gonna happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, just my take, but maybe we shouldn't have a government institution that needs to have cameras strapped to them at all times to keep them from killing
Shooting
people
constantly.
And even then, it doesn't really work.
Yeah. I saw something, and I tweeted about it as well, like that the U.S. Police Department is like the 3rd most funded military in the world.
Yep. Yeah.
Number one is America. It's the American military.
You look at some of this shit, and like if you like look at municipal budgets in America, like there's a lot of cities where half, if not more than half, of the budget is for the police.
Which is wild to me. Like I used to work in local government. Like I've seen how local government budgets work outside of the U.S. and it's nowhere near as fucked up as it is. Like most, I don't know, no, quote unquote normal countries. Like obviously, like Sweden has police violence as well, and I think that like there's even a conversation about like defunding the police here as well. But even within that context, it's like completely disproportionate.
See, I'm having trouble thinking of Officer Bjornsson, the Swedish police officer. Like just the concept of Swedish and police officer doesn't connect in my brain.
You'd think so, but unfortunately they do exist, and they do still do bigotry, unfortunately.
Damn.
Even if they don't have like guns, which is a good thing. I think cops shouldn't have guns. Maybe that would help.
Yep.
Anyway.
So that's fun. And also, at the moment right now, they're having the closing arguments in the David Chauvin trial. Derek Chauvin.
Oh.
So we'll probably have a decision on that either today or tomorrow. Which, you know what? Given that we're sort of like what was Tom Hanks's son or whatever said some dumb shit about White Boy Summer.
Yeah.
Well, given how many police shootings and mass shootings there's been, it sounds like there is going to be a white boy summer.
Yeah, unfortunately. But like, I honestly think that like he might, like, Chauvin might probably become convicted because it seems like even the cops are like ganging up on him, in like the most obvious case of like, let's pin all of the blame on this one guy instead of most of the blame.
Yeah, although they did try. They had some like real bullshit medical guy try to make the claim that he died of a fentanyl overdose while having
Yeah.
his throat fucking caved in by a police officer.
Yeah, like I saw like the very wasn't it like the opening argument or some shit like that where the defense basically said like he just happened to die from a fentanyl induced heart attack just as he was being like choked by the cop because he like hid drugs in his mouth as he was being as the cops came, which like sure, but like I mean that's an argument. It's a shitty one, but it's an argument.
I was just like, who? I guess it has to do with the fact that you don't know what shit you buy when it's not being regulated by the government. I'm just like, who the fuck is buying fentanyl? No one's being like, man, gotta get me some of that stuff that kills you with like a tiny amount.
I've thought about that, but like I probably shouldn't say this on fucking Twitch, but like apparently,
A different Mia Mulder.
a different meal mulch. No, but like from what I like, obviously I haven't like I have absolutely no experience with fentanyl whatsoever.
Like I'm about to hear like I just heard that fentanyl. I just heard that fentanyl slaps. Like no.
No, but like that's the only reason why I can figure why anyone would buy it. Because like it is so extremely dangerous. Like yeah, people who are addicted to opiates, yeah, like that's basically the only group I can see that would have any reasons to.
Yeah, like my guess is that it is like a either cheaper alternative to heroin or it is like a thing that unscrupulous people call heroin, but it isn't.
That might be true.
Because when
Like,
drugs are
like I know that like a lot of people use fentanyl to sort of cope with their like prescription opiate addiction because that's like a big thing in the opioid epidemic.
yeah,
So,
which is another fucked up thing that we just another box of holy shit, what the hell's going on with this world type stuff.
yeah. In a just world, Purdue would have been like destroyed very recently, but it turns out that the entire company is still like around. First of all, the company is around, hasn't faced basically any consequence, and the family who owns Purdue is still like extraordinarily rich, thanks to it, and they're like scot-free from it. In a just world, however, they would all be in a war crimes tribunal, basically. Well, not a war crime, I guess not a war crime, but like some kind of like crime against humanity place.
I'm looking forward to the days when we can talk about how shit companies like Moderna and Pfizer and AstraZeneca are again.
Yes. This COVID vaccination place was a godsend for them. Now they have so much goodwill.
Yeah, and the fact that they're all branded, like it's weird that they're like there's like the four horsemen of vaccines, and then you got like your real indie hits like Sputnik and Sputnik, the one that is 150% effective. Do not ask question, just inject.
Worry about it. Although honestly, I'm probably closer to having a Sputnik vaccine than I am to having any other type of vaccine except for AstraZeneca, because like that, I think AstraZeneca is like the only vaccine we have here.
Yeah,
and we have like a very small amount of doses of like the Moderna and Pfizer, and like
Denmark just banned them, so maybe you'll get some. You get their leftovers.
Yeah, that might be true, but Denmark also has like weird rationale lately because they're also like banning Syrians. So that's also a new thing that's happening in my neighborhood. That Denmark is like sending people back to Syria, having declared it to be a safe area to go back to.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, famously safe period and area right now, Syria.
Yeah. Oh,
Don't worry about it.
yeah, it's going great. We just we now because like we have tons of AstraZeneca vaccines.
Mm.
The fact that but because of the completely non-issue of the blood clot thing, they're they decided to make the rule that you can only take them if you're 55 or older. So we got to this situation where they have an entirely different program for AstraZeneca injections where they're all over the province for anybody over 55. But they have so many of them and there's so few people getting them that they're just like rotting, like they're expiring, and so now they've reduced the age to 40, and I'm just like, anybody who's like, I'm not getting this. And somebody wrote like a freaking, yeah, they reduced the age to 40 just today. The other thing too is that there's something about this. There was an op-ed that was like, I got an AstraZeneca vaccine and now I regret it because I wanted to get one. I should have held out for one of the good ones. And I'm just like, I hate everybody. I hate all of this shit.
Should have held up. Like, obviously, anyone who writes an article like that obviously has no clue how a vaccine is supposed to work.
Yeah.
God. Anyway, so that's the world recap.
Yeah, we did. There you go. There's your news.
That's your news. That's a news segment of this show that we do once a week.
The Canada and Sweden news. All right. We do have questions, which is fun.
Allegedly, we do.
Allegedly.
Which are half about Star Trek and half about various Paradox games coming out.
Or if there aren't, we'll find a way to bring it to that.
Yes.
The first question, very easy to do so, which is, what's a question or topic you wish you were asked more about?
I would say like, ooh, maybe I don't know.
Has anyone ever just been like, I've just been curious, who was one of the leading academics on early sexology in Germany? What was that guy's name?
You know me too well. Like, yeah, that, like, I would say, like, Victorian medicine would probably be, like, something that I care about most. But I don't really see that as, like, a realistic thing that a lot of people will wonder about.
Although I feel like there's a really good discussion to be had because I think as we're learning, the treatment, I feel like this is terrible, but the treatment of trans people is very often the canary in the coal mine for the way society's going, and often when they're going fashy, the first victim is trans people.
Yes, there are like 3 examples of this cyclical history, unfortunately. That's what my next video is about.
Good.
Actually,
I was gonna be like, you should try thinking about that for something, and then it happened.
no, like that's basically what my next video is about. It's about like transphobia, both now and in history, which is why it's like 3 hours long, because it covers like 200 years of history and also 3 continents.
For me, I think here's the thing. My topics of expertise are, how do I put this? The topics that I did my research on for like work and stuff have virtually nothing in common with the work I do on Step Back. Not for any like reason except for the fact that my topic was, I had trouble explaining what the fuck I was doing to my own colleagues. And so trying to like, because like I did a lot, my history PhD work was very theory heavy and was in the sort of like I was in multiple different boxes that are places where if you are in this field of history, you're not exactly super cool and you're not exactly like invited to the table. like no one wants to have lunch and figure out what the hell you're talking about. Because I was in technology history, I was in big history, communication technology history, and also 21st century history. And these are all topics that like no history. And also I was in the digital history department, which is like the people who are using like quantitative tools and like programming and like machine learning and stuff like that to do history analysis. So I was not super popular, and my work was really weird. And then I was the head of I was the research assistant for the digital history lab, which got a good amount of money, but would be used like once every other month when a professor wanted me to scan a book for him.
Awesome.
So yeah.
So like those things, I guess, would be good to ask us more about.
Why is nobody asking me about body without organs? Huh? Why is nobody telling him talk? No one's asking what's your opinion on plateaus of time. Because 7 people have read that book.
God bless.
And also, Body Without Organs is more of a study of non-linear history, which is a different topic altogether.
Oh, that's
I had so one of the things we have to do here for your PhD is you have to do something called comprehensive exams.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically is like you have to do 3 different courses where a teacher gives you a list of about 90 to 100 books you have to read, and then you have to do a test in the fall. It was super fun for me because one of the weeks when I was writing the test were like the weeks when the 2016 Donald Trump election happened, which was fun because I had to like write like an essay a week for 3 weeks. But one of the professors I had, or the professor I had for like my digital history section, was like, he was just like, so first discussion, what is a system? And it's like, what is the thing that causes organization within a system? And it was like energy. And like, he made me read a book on entropy. That was my first book I read for my history PhD. It's like entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. It was a very weird. I lived in a very weird world when I was a PhD student. I loved it though.
God bless.
With a professor who had a secret laboratory that was full of 3D printers, which was one of the most fun places to be.
Very fun. Not super like traditional.
Yeah.
Traditional history vibes.
No.
Good fun.
We did have. You would have loved this. One of my other students, like it's another PhD student who had the same supervisors as me. He was working on a project that extensively used 3D printers because he was studying Victorian era magic tricks and he was trying to recreate them with 3D printing programs.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I do find that very interesting, actually. That's an interesting approach. Huh.
We had a lot of fun.
I never thought about studying history that way. I'm very much like taught in the school of read old book, and that's it.
Yeah, I
maybe do one basic statistic, and that's it.
Yeah, my supervisor was. I had 2 supervisors, and one's book was written in approximately 9 months, and everyone was blown away by that. And it was a book on electric eels and how electric eels played a role in the scientific development of the discovery of electricity and how to use it. And then the other one wrote a book that was about the how North America got telephone lines. So
classic, yeah, a bit more. That feels like a bit more traditional.
Or comparing how Canada and America implemented telephone networks. That was basically it.
Mm.
Okay, the next one, again, high on the list of things that we can turn into topics. What's with the Holy Roman Empire?
What's with it? What's the deal?
Yeah. Friggin' 13th century German Seinfeld.
Hey, what's the deal with the Holy Roman Empire? What's the deal with Charles IV? Vecislaus, what's his deal? You heard about this? The defenestration of Prague? Heard about this? The Hussites, they're at it again? No, like, what's the deal with it? I guess, like, what is the deal with it?
It was a weird, okay, so there was this guy, so there was this thing called Rome, it died, due to self-inflicted wounds.
It half died.
It half died, but then almost like 1,000 years, no, not 1,000 years, but like several hundred years later, some German French guy, if you try to say which one he is, you start a war, decided to conquer France or Germany. Again, don't ask.
Mm-hmm.
And decided that he had...
And also Italy.
And also Italy. And so he conquered so much of it that he decided, hey, I could be a Roman Empire. And then the Pope said, sure.
Sure. You're the Roman Empire.
But
while the Roman Empire still existed.
Yeah. Well, like...
Sort of.
Well, like, yeah, some guy with, like, a deep V shirt and, like, a lot of chest hair wearing a gold chain was like, what? This is all Greek to me. Yeah. So there's a... So then but then Charlemagne had sons... Or sorry, Charles, again, don't want to start a war. World War II was literally fought over whether or not Charlemagne was German or French. So Charles Karl, when he died, had like 3 sons, and they all sucked. And they gave them each a Francia. He was like, you can have you can have West Francia, you can have East Francia, and you can have South Francia.
Middle Francia, which is even funnier, because it's just like you could have the bit in the middle that like is a bit of both. That instantly went away.
And I guess Lombardy, I don't remember what that one is, but
I don't know.
I think it was a Carling too. But then basically, there's this part that called East Francia that again instantly broke apart because they hadn't developed the CK3 technology to have primogeniture yet, so it was all gravel kind. And then they were like, well, okay. But then there was these people who have sex with their cousins called Habsburgs that were like, your Germany, my Germany. And it basically became the loosest definition of an empire. Like, it kept getting, like, every generation you would add another set of quotation marks against empire until eventually, like, it was just pushed over by Napoleon. So that's German history in a nutshell.
It's a little bit like it's a little bit like a Facebook group that you had a hard time leaving, in the sense of like you belong to the group, but do you really it's like belonging to one of those like Twitter covens or like a Facebook coven. Like, yeah, you're on Facebook and you're in a coven, but like you're not actually doing much of anything. But you can't leave the group. It's illegal to leave the group because an emperor comes and kills you. Mm. It's one of those things. If Mark Zuckerberg could kill you for leaving Facebook, that's basically what would happen.
Yeah,
This is a weird comparison that I'm doing right now, but
until a short Corsican man decided, or a not short Corsican man, he'd be short by today's standards. So everyone was like, Napoleon's not short; he was only 5'9". And I was like, 5'9". I don't know.
Short king.
He was tall for people before they discovered vitamins.
/ French person.
Yeah. Rode his Vespa across Europe.
Controversy.
Especially because, I say he rode his Vespa across Europe.
It ran out of battery somewhere in Russia.
That's the other thing, too, is, like, are Corsicans really that Italian? Like, I don't know. I don't know culturally where they are. I just know that they eat the worm cheese.
I think they used to be primarily Italian, and then like during the 19th century, like after Napoleon, they like progressively became more French. I think that's the vibe of it. Like they used to be pretty Italian, and then France conquered it sometime like during the revolutionary eras.
Yeah, it's the other thing. I just have to remember which one is Corsica and which one's Sardinia, and which one belongs to which.
I know the top one is French. I know that much because I've been playing a lot of Victoria too.
Yeah.
I also base my cultural makeup of that island also on Victoria too. assuming that's a reliable historical source.
Yeah.
So they are France. They are the country of France. But for a significant time of history, there were a lot of mostly Italians living on there. Well, they spoke Italian. Anyway.
Hey, Alex Shendy, thank you for the subscription. Much appreciated.
Nice.
You're making it happen. Sardinia is the Italian one. Okay.
Well, we all know that they should be Greek. All of them.
Yeah. I do. Okay, maybe this is just my take on playing Victoria 2, but like I just remembered like maybe I played it wrong because it felt like the ruling party never changed unless you wanted it to.
In Victoria. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you weren't playing a country, it was very rare the government changed at all.
If well, you can use some mods to make it a bit better, but like basically the rule of thumb is if you're playing well, people won't be upset, and if people aren't upset, they're not going to change the political party.
Yeah.
Like if people are happy, they're fine.
Fair.
And then nothing changes. So
that's
like
how,
what you need to do is you need to oppress your own population violently so that they become unhappy with you and then rise up against you.
Yeah, and I remember them having a very good grasp on American politics, where I played as the Democratic Party, who were the conservatives, which made sense at the time. But then, because there's a hard-coded Civil War event, I was then the Democratic Party ruling the Union against the Confederacy, which was also the Democratic Party, because the government wouldn't change. And the Republican Party never showed up. And America was a one-party state. Yeah, they're like, this is the breakdown of American Parliament, and I'm like, oh, you guys didn't model this at all.
Yeah, this is why there's never going to be another one.
There's got to be another one, and hopefully they like just put any thought at all into the United States, just any.
God.
All right,
I mean,
next...
they don't need to. They just need to manifest destiny and then leave it alone until the Spanish-American War, and then leave it alone again. That's all they need to do.
The next question we got here is, do you think the NDP will shift firmly to the right wing over the next 10 years? I hope not. I think the NDP is going to continue being what it's been my entire life, which is like the most flaccid, weak social democratic party that is extremely afraid of its own opinions. They're a party that is highly convinced that all of its policy positions, which are extremely popular, are in fact actually very unpopular, and so are afraid to actually advocate for them, and so they just keep losing elections. I.e., most social democrats. So, most social democrats in liberal countries. But that's about it. If there's going to be a socialist movement, it's probably going to come out of them. But honestly, like, I feel very pessimistic about that being a thing. Canadian socialism is in a pretty bad place right now. We didn't even get to have, like, when everybody else was having a Bernie Sanders or a Jeremy Corbyn, we didn't even get to have one.
You just have to be like, Macron. Or is that Macron? No, that's French. Who's your guy?
Trudeau.
Same thing.
Yeah.
In my head, they both sound French.
I mean, they both are French.
Yeah.
Okay. The only based thing that Trudeau has ever done was that when Fidel Castro died, he wrote a tweet about how, because Justin Trudeau knew Fidel Castro when he was a kid because his dad was prime minister during like a lot of the times when Canada was building its pretty friendly relationship with Cuba. And so when Fidel Castro died, he was like, he went to his funeral and he was like, I'm going to miss, like, I remember having good memories with Fidel Castro and this stuff. And then the Canadian Conservatives were like, blah, 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 blah.
There you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he wanted to remember his dad.
Yeah.
I know that the conspiracy theory that like Castro is his dad is fake. I know it is fake, but it is very funny.
Yeah. What's it called? I feel like Trudeau would not be this uncool if Justin Trudeau was not his dad, or if Pierre Trudeau wasn't his dad.
That makes sense.
If he was like had a huge beard and smoked cigars, he'd be much cooler. All right, have you heard I mean,
Well, but that is the ideal. That's the ideal head of state right there.
Yeah.
Big beard, big cigar, can't be assassinated.
Yeah, if he was taking after his father and his father was Fidel Castro, the dictator part would work. But besides that, nothing else.
Mm.
All right. Have you heard of the time? I'm gonna copy this one, just so that it's. I think there might be some broken English here, but have you heard of the time where a German satire show implied the dictator Erdogan was fucking goats? And then Erdogan wanted him imprisoned for that, and it became an international incident because of the optics. It looked like the government of Germany actually considered it for a moment. That was the same show, which most likely is basically accountable for destroying the Austrian government after exposing the right-wing, newly elected government tried to sell themselves to Russia, but the Russian contact was a fake and filmed it. Russia actually had nothing to do with it. I think you would find that interesting.
I had not heard about that. I haven't heard about that, but it seems like an interesting event. I feel like satire show hosts involve themselves in politics like way more than you would think, and therefore have like an actual weird effect on like actual political history.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no journalists doing journalism anymore, so the only people who can do journalism are comedians, because if they called their comedy actual journalism, then people would get mad at them for saying the truth, which you're not supposed to do as a journalist. So, plus, like Germany, I know Germany and Turkey have kind of a unique relationship. I know that they're kind of like, I know Germany, like one does a genocide, the other one ignores it strategically. I guess that was only one way. Germany only covered for Turkey's genocide for a while, but
I mean, you're right, but damn.
Yeah, when the rest of the world was like, hey, where did all of these Armenians go? And Germany was like, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about the Huns. We have to keep doing the war.
We have to focus on the front lines and a very special relationship with our friends over in Istanbul. Don't worry about it.
The Sultan, extremely important strategically to maintaining the First World War. They controlled I guess they were sort of like the buffer, they distracted the British and the Russians enough to do the rest of the war, I guess. I don't know. The Ottomans were kind of like...
the Ottomans were the heat shield of the Central Powers during the First World War, in the sense of like they put them, like they gladly had them like in the meat grinder to sort of just like wear away over time against like Russian and British forces. Like it's not meant to win.
Yeah.
It's meant to just like soften the impact.
Although they had admittedly the coolest front of World War I, which was the Middle Eastern front, where there was like cavalry charges and Lawrences of Arabia and
cavalry charges against trains with guns on them. Like that's good shit.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. The Ottomans were not like... I mean, Germany was always like, I got shitty friends, but luckily we're gonna carry our friends to Diamond League through
Diamond League. Oh, horrifying.
I don't know how I turned World War I into an Overwatch joke, but there you go.
Oh, that's fine. And at the very end, Austria-Hungary disconnected, and yeah.
Okay, so there we go. There, we solved it. The next question, somebody just saw that my Steam popped up and covered you for a second, because the next question is, how many hours do you have in the Paradox games?
Oh God!
Here we go.
Let me check.
This is gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad for both of us.
Yes.
All
do you
right.
want to start?
Sure. I've got 637 hours in Crusader Kings 2. 82 hours in Crusader Kings 3. Admittedly, I need to play that more.
Mm-hmm.
743 in Stellaris. And let's see where some of the other ones are. Your EU4, I've got 173 hours. Because, yeah, not my jam. Hoi 4, I've got 65 hours. Again, not my jam. Is there one I missed? Oh, Victoria. Victoria 2, I've got 210 hours. And I never bought Imperator Rome because I'm not a fool.
Fair. So I also never bought Imperator Rome. I feel like this is going to out me as having a severe problem.
Oh, I have 60 hours in Hoi 3, which I can't even remember playing.
Oh, that's nice. Shit. All right, so I have 540 hours in Crusader Kings 2. Not as much. 45 hours in Crusader Kings 3. Haven't really clicked with that one yet. Let's see. Europa Universalis 4. I have 1,000...
So you haven't clicked with Crusader Kings 3 with 543 hours?
No, Crusader Kings 2, I had that.
Oh, okay.
The second one, I like that one. The third one was okay. 1,518 hours in Europa Universalis 4. I clicked that with that one. I love that one. Probably my most played one. Let's see. Victoria 2, I have 702 hours, which is less than I thought it would be. Let's see, I have 1,000 hours of Hearts of Iron 4.
Really?
Yeah.
What were you doing in that game?
And 200 hours of Stellaris. And like half an hour in Imperator, because I didn't like it. So that's me. That's us having a problem. That's us talking about our addictions in a very horrifying, like
I got some Stellaris time over the weekend until... Stellaris is a tough game now because you have to balance your economy in a lot of ways, or else you're just going to end up being like severely in trouble. Like you have to be like I was like, hey, I've got all these planets. I'm just going to make shit tons of like alloys, and then they're like, problem with that, your people occasionally like eating food, and I'm like, fuck. I decided that spaceships was more important than food, and that ended up collapsing my economy.
It does do that. I haven't really played that much of Stellaris, not yet over the weekend either. Just because it doesn't hit the same vibe for me. I'm probably gonna play a little bit now because they've done a lot of changes and the new expansion, which seems a bit underwhelming, but apparently I'm gonna still try it. But yeah, so that's how much we play that for literally thousands and thousands of hours of the fucking map games.
Yeah.
No wonder my friends think I have I have severe issues with these games.
I don't know. Isn't that like, I feel like for Europe those are rookie numbers. Like I always thought that like
especially for Victoria 2. Like I feel like I've recently gotten more into Victoria 2, so I like only 700 hours. That's baby shit.
Like I would just think that like in Europe, like on European Tinder or whatever, you have to put in how many hours you have in each Paradox game as like your way to put in your profile.
I mean, if you do that in Stockholm, you'll find people who actually work at Paradox.
Yeah.
That might work.
Yeah, like I mean, and in other countries, like if you have to go to like I don't know, DJ Funky Beats in Germany, or I don't know, everyone's got some Paradox time, and it's important.
It's important.
The Operation Gladio of Europe, as we've discussed.
Yeah.
Okay. The second Operation Gladio of Europe, I guess. The Operation Gladio of Europe was Gladio.
That's fair. Didn't think about that.
Except this time it's with board games and video games instead of paying Nazis to kill communists. Okay. Yay, Italian! Italian politics in the Cold War. Where it's just terrorism all the time.
Love it. Love the Cold War. Love Cold War politics.
Mm-hmm. All right, next we got here is a question asking if it's ever okay to blame the electorate for a choice they made in elections. So this has come up in my neck of the woods this last week, where everyone's like, hey, if you're one of those people who held out for the Liberals instead of the NDP, or worse, voted for Doug Ford, fuck you, buddy. So can you blame people for their choices?
You blame people for their choices. I mean, I think you can on a certain extent, but I also think because the only real comparison I have is like to Trump, right? Like, why would people vote for Trump? Like I feel like in a lot of cases you can blame people for their choices. Like people or with Brexit, for example, like if something is obviously a bad idea and you do it anyway because you had bad reasons and a bad rationale for it, then I think people can be called out for that. But on the other hand, like for example, for Trump, for example, like I think it was who is that the person that we like who made the podcast. It Can Happen Here. Who was that guy? Chris? No, what's it called? Evans? Something?
Robert Evans.
Robert Evans. He talked about it, which really made it click for me because I had a really hard time getting it. He talked about like why people would vote for Donald Trump, in the sense of like, imagine that you're a rural like country person, and all you hear about when like Democrats talk about like what they're going to do for the election is like they're going to basically increase taxes on cars to help the environment, but you don't have any public transportation where you live. They talk about like how they're going to fix things in the cities, but you don't live in the city, so that doesn't really affect you. And to a person like that, it can really feel like one of the parties has like completely abandoned you. And even though if you don't agree with people like Donald Trump, for example, at least he's talking and like giving the impression that like he cares about people like in the country and like cares about people who've like been left behind. And I feel like a person like that, in a circumstance that like a lot of people can't really relate to, I feel like we can't really blame those people for their choices, if that makes sense. Like there are contexts for people's choices that can make it make sense, and that we might not understand because we're not in the same context. Does that make sense?
Yeah, politics is there's sort of like a way to think about politics if you're very politically motivated and you do a lot, like you have like a lot of political education, where you see politics as ideas and policies and stuff. But in many ways, for most people, politics is factions and identity and all of that kind of stuff, which makes it a little bit more of a complex conversation. I just wanted also somebody...
Yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, somebody wanted to point out how is this Operation Gladio, and that is because I have a well-operating theory that the CIA is funding like map games and board games, German-style board games, to contain the European impulse for colonization. That's it.
Yes. If we're only going to get Victoria 3 once people want to start doing Empire again.
Yeah. So back to the politics as identity thing. Like, how many people in Sweden are not really social democrats? Like, they might be more conservative or more pro-capitalist, but they're social democrats because Sweden is the social democrat country.
Yes. Like, and like a lot of people, especially here, like they really identify themselves like as like a social democratic family, and they live in like social democratic neighborhoods. Like they we call it like sosse-vänster, sosse-Sverige, like this sort of like kind of comfy, doesn't really like rattle, like likes the status quo a lot. And like even if someone like that like would like if they dug into like their own ideology a bit more, they would probably vote like Christian Democrat or maybe a liberal or maybe a center party. They still vote social democrat because like that's what they do, and that complicates a lot of like political discourse both here and there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more, and yeah, there's like the thing that Robert Evans did say about that strong feeling that there's a lot of people who live in rural areas that do feel left behind, and honestly are being left behind with the rapid urbanization of the world. A lot of times, like especially like this doesn't get talked about a whole lot in America, which makes me think that I should make a video about it. But like, the situation with rural America right now is really dire. There are states now that, if we applied the rules, would not qualify for statehood today because they've emptied out so much. And things like cattle wrangling have become crimes again because there's so much poverty that people have returned to like stealing other people's cattle as a like way to make money. And the opioid crisis is hitting rural communities much harder than anywhere else. And
I was about to say that because like rural states and rural towns are like by factors of like hundreds are being affected more by the opioid epidemic than urban centers.
Yep.
Because you would think that like cities would be hardest hit, but
and rural suicide rates are really, really high and way higher than they are in cities. Someone said, aren't Trump voters more economically privileged? Yeah. That is a factor, because the other thing is that the almost by definition by rural people is that there's not that many of them, so they don't tilt elections a whole lot, except in America where they do because of the Electoral College. So states that don't have a lot of people can still tip the balance, but most of the people who are like really these like disaffected people just don't vote. Period.
Yeah.
But have more right-wing sympathies now than they do left-wing sympathies, because they probably, like, if they could vote, they would vote Republican, or if they wanted to. But something like their non-voter is a bigger category than Democrat or Republican in the United States. I don't know if that, but yeah, there are still. Like, it's not like just because on average the what's it called? The Trump voter was more well off, does not mean that this wasn't a factor. It's just that there's just so many more people who are in urban areas that urban class politics is different than urban rural politics, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's where the sort of line is drawn, because I think you can blame some people for shitty decisions, like people who are rich and like well informed and like have power to like, but like have the privilege to like, I don't know, like make a political impact in that sort of sense. I think those people can be blamed. Yep. Like people, British people who have like 3 summer homes in Spain and now being kicked out because they voted for Brexit. And it's like, yes, that's your own fault because you voted for Brexit and thought that you could still stay in Spain. That's not a thing.
Are rural people better off or worse off than are poor rural people better or worse off than poor urban people? They're not really comparable. They both have serious bad shit that happens to them. It's just that the kinds of policies that would benefit poor urban people are very different than policies that hurt poor urban or rural people. Like their political world and the kinds of issues that they deal with and care about are very different.
Yeah, exactly. So, and like when you look at like what Democrats are talking about, like nationally, for example, you can definitely see why a lot of like rural voters think that like, oh cool, they don't give a shit about what's happening, because they do primarily talk about like things in urban centers, which also makes sense because like they do, like more people live in urban centers. But as you said, also like rural voters do flip elections, so that affects also the success of Democrats.
Yeah, because unfortunately, because of the anti-democratic measures put into the United States, rural people have like 600 times more voting power typically than like their urban friends. But like, and a lot of it is like, it's all sorts of stuff that has to do with like, I don't know, various issues. Like the one that comes up a lot is firearm legislation, because like a lot of Americans who live in cities or in the suburbs are like, we need to ban all guns to stop all these mass shootings, which is like, a reasonable response to the fact that America has a mass shooting like every 20 minutes or something now. But also like You ban guns, I can't fucking get the coyotes off of my properties. They eat my chickens or something like that.
Yeah.
Is not a conversation they think about. Or I think the big one that came up is that kind of explained it was when we were having the AR-15 talk, was the 30 to 50 feral hogs, which turned out to be legit. Because this person was like, okay, yeah, well, the thing is, like, this person was like, we need to ban AR-15s, and he was like, what do I do if, like, 30 to 50 feral hogs go running through my yard with, like, my kids and stuff? And everybody made a big, like, laugh about it, and they're like, no, like, feral hogs are actually, like, a serious issue, and they do, like, actually, like, swarm in, like, 30 to, like, groups of 30 to 50, and they can do a lot of damage and hurt people. And it was like, fuck. And also, they can't really be taken down with anything short of, like, firearms.
Yeah, hogs are, I don't know, like, this is something that's like a lot of urban people, because like if you live in a city, you're an urban person, like don't really interact with a ton. So like hogs are bad. A lot of wildlife will fuck up your shit if you live in a rural neighborhood.
Yeah.
And
Cody Johnson's been warning us for years now.
Warning us. No one listened. No one listened to the prophecies. We didn't listen.
When everybody said that this joke is getting stale, why do you keep hammering on it? He didn't give up. That's like the best and worst part about Some More News is like they will never give up the bit, even when everybody hates it.
So you know it's good.
Yeah. In other news, there's probably gonna be another Warmbo video soon. Okay. Do Swedish Warmbo, the puppet from Some More News.
Oh, I haven't seen Some More News in like ages, unfortunately.
They're
good. They're great.
They've made a puppet that has an extremely irritating voice. Okay. Do Swedish farmers have shotguns?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they do. Like gun culture in Sweden isn't even close to what it is in America. Like not by a long shot. But it does like shotguns and slug guns, which I love a slug gun.
They have to protect their crop of fish, their herring fields from invaders such as boar and bear and reindeer.
Yes. Because if they don't, the open barrels of the rotting fish will be invaded.
They can't even. Yeah, they won't even be able to eat their fish before it's properly rotted.
Gone.
Sorry.
No, but yeah, they do have guns. They do have guns.
Because you do have issues with, like, I was like joking, but like Sweden does have boars and bears.
Yes, we do have boars, bears, wolves, and moose. Moose are by far the worst of that category.
Although wolves are actually Swedish citizens, but that's a different thing.
That's a whole different thing. Like that entire category of like bears and boars and wolves, those are fine. Those don't bother too many people. The fucking moose, the elk, they will fuck up your car and then eat your apple tree. Not the apples, the tree. They'll be fine with it. I love when you take a driver's license in Sweden and they teach you about like how to deal with like animals and stuff. Almost all animals are like, if you're about to hit an animal, the best thing is just to like keep going. Like it sucks, but you best keep going, because if you like swerve and stuff, there's a higher likelihood of crashing and hurting yourself. That goes for most animal, not moose, because you will crash into the moose and the moose will not move.
Okay, no, it seems like
you do.
It seems like we're getting cross wires, because you said moose is in moose. Someone was like moose is in elk or moose is in moose, because like I am Canadian and there's moose are a whole different thing. They're like elephants.
Are they not the same thing?
Well, like
Ellie. I'm looking up what they're called elses. European Ellie. English. What is the English translation of Ellie? I'm looking it up. Don't worry. Moose. It's moose. It's moose.
Oh yeah, because like I'm just looking at their range here, and they are in both Sweden and Canada. and also
Yes.
Siberia. So it is the same species. So we have to deal with the same bullshit of giant
Yes.
moose. You don't have I'm trying to think, it's like grizzly bears. Do you guys, I don't think you guys have like those big ass things. I feel like their range is a lot smaller. Yeah, they're just North American. Okay.
Yeah.
You guys have small like brown bears or whatever. And we've
Yes,
got
we
like
do.
this is like
Well, but small doesn't matter.
Small for a
Perspective when you're
bear.
Dealing with a bear.
yeah. They only became small when you discovered North America, and North America is like hold my bear.
Oh, my bear. Are not. Wait, hang on. What is a brown bear? Aren't brown bear and grizzlies the same thing?
No, grizzlies are way bigger. Grizzlies are like 10 feet tall or something like that. This is what people came here for. This is the content they craved.
I'm not sure about that. I think the grizzly is the brown bear.
It's the North American brown bear.
Oh, okay, but it's okay. The grizzly bear, the North American brown bear, of the subspecies. Oh, it's a subspecies of brown bear. Okay, but they're the same. But they're basically the same.
They're just,
I guess they're like slightly bigger.
They're just
but, like,
bigger, yeah.
I'm gonna say slightly. I'm gonna be a bit of a defensive European here and say that they're big.
I just thought
How
that
big are they?
every time I think of Europe, like this is still a part of my brain that's fundamentally broken, which is I just can't imagine that there's nature in Europe still. So I just think of like most of the animals, like if they survive, they're much smaller. They can't be. They can't be as big as they are here because they're just so like what's it called? You guys just built cities where all the nature was. It's all gone.
That's true for most of Europe, but not Sweden. We only people in Sweden only live on like the bottom like tip, and then the rest of it is just like wasteland, like forests and wasteland and.
I know that feeling. I live in a country that is that.
Yeah, exactly. We both live in the in that sort of like way.
Yeah, you do have the Panzerbjorn, the armored bears, the armored polar bears.
Yeah, who all work with the Swedish Royal Guard, of course.
Or no, wait,
The
they're
Swedish Royal
Norwegian.
Cavalry.
They're Norwegian because they live in Svalbard.
All right, of course.
Um,
Swedish Norwegian, what's the difference? They're just West Swedes. That's a spicy joke since we conquered them once.
oh boy. So next,
They're fine with it. They're fine with it.
suppose your president or prime minister and a referendum takes place that does take away someone's rights, like an attack on LGBT rights or homeless rights or etc. Let's see, or people removing rights from themselves in favor of institutions. It might be seen as an undemocratic to refuse, but you believe it is not right to remove such rights. Do you apply that choice, or do you follow what you think is right?
You copy paste that question for me.
Sure. It's essentially like if you were prime minister of England and they did the turf law, would you veto it and be anti-democracy, or would you say I am the Senate and stop it?
I would I don't know, like me in this very specific scenario, I think that I would become the Senate. I think I would become the Senate.
Yeah, protecting minority rights is kind of important.
And also, I feel like when it comes to minority rights, that's also like one of the big like exceptions when it comes to democracy, because like democracy is great. Love democracy. I love democracy. I love the republic. But the big issue with democracy, like the problem with it, is that like it can lead to a tyranny of the majority. So protecting the
There's what's it called? The whole thing about
minority rights against the majority is like actually a good thing, but it's like not democratic.
yeah, 2 wolves and a sheep voting what to have for dinner is the old line.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. They told me that in the school I went after dropping out of high school. Because I went to like one of those like socialist people's schools, and they didn't present it in a very like this is a nuanced take on democracy, but even though democracy is very good, they presented that in a very like, hey, democracy sucks. Authoritarianism is the good option. And I remember being in the class and just being like, wait, what the fuck? That something's off here.
Yeah, voting to take away people's civil rights and civil liberties is one of those cases that is why you can't, like, you've got to have some sort of ripcord, I guess. You can't, because, mob rule, or mob, I didn't say mob rule, that's not good. But, like, I'm not an 18th century conservative who's afraid of anarchy. But I honestly do think that a lot of times, if you've gotten to that point, things have already gotten very wrong, because what the issue is how we got to the situation where we have a culture that's tearing people apart like that. And a lot of times it comes down to cultural systems we put in place. Like today, I'm just about to release a video that's going to be like, nationalism is bad, because it creates these like groups that we try to then destroy through mass murder and relocation. And it's like, oh, so this is on my mind a little bit.
I feel like the only time it's acceptable to like remove. No, that doesn't make any sense. No, sorry. As I was trying to say it, I realized it didn't make any sense. It's
the same thing as like the libertarians who argue that you can have voluntary slavery, and it's like, to have popular, participation in the world by the people, you can't then also have a society that allows for you to vote to take away people's rights to participate.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. Yeah. This is one of those, can God lift a rock so big that even he can't even lift it, or whatever.
If you want to have a video game, like, I don't know, like, if you want to test this, if you want to test what you would do yourself, I would really recommend the game Suzerain. I've been playing that like crazy the last couple of weeks. Because it does this. You become president of a fictional country, and you can people will vote on taking away minority rights, and you can veto it if you want to. Like and that also like adds in the sort of like economic benefit and like social benefits and like how it will impact your election and things like that. So it's a pretty good thought experiment if you want to try it. It's free advertising for Suzerain there. It's a good game.
Reminds me, I'm supposed to buy a game so that I have a friend who became a game developer after after university, and she was like, "You should play my game on a stream sometime." And then I didn't do it, so I should probably get that game at some point.
Game. I'm curious.
Yeah, let me just dig it up. I'm a bad friendo.
It's okay. One of my old like military friends is one of the developers who made Raft, that game, and I also like should play it on stream sometime, but I have not.
It's called Avorion, a procedural co-op space sandbox where players can build their own spaceships out of dynamically scalable blocks.
Oh yeah, I've seen this.
So one of my friends worked on this. I remember she was an interesting person. There's this weird German sport where they do gymnastics on the back of horses, and she was into that. I don't know.
What a world.
She was a German exchange student. She was a German student in who did a semester here. It's called vaulting.
It's called horse vaulting, actually. It's a very advanced European sport.
Where you do gymnastics on horse.
It makes you perfectly suited to lead the cavalry charge against the French. We don't do that anymore, of course, but of course we could if we wanted to. Mm-hmm. We have the best skills to do it.
Check out my mixtape. I'm a DJ. All Germans are DJs. That's another thing that you don't know. They don't teach you.
German.
They never tell you that, but all Germans are DJs.
They're all DJs, and they all know how to make techno music, like hard bass techno music.
Yeah. Okay.
And also like military marching music.
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing, but yeah. Well, it's only the same thing in Serbia, but that's a different thing. Gotta get that Turbo Folk thing in.
It's a turbo, yeah.
Okay.
Welcome to the Monday Discourse, where we have the most niche jokes on the internet.
Yes. If you're not aware of the music genre known as Turbo Folk, that is only really made in former Yugoslavian countries, and is has members that are frequently associated with like white supremacist groups and often get arrested for having massive amounts of drugs and like assault weapons and stuff.
Mm. Like almost like tenuous connections to actual genocide causers.
Yeah. All right. How do you deal with people that when you point out something is racist or sexist, they just reply that they don't care and actively think it's good? Also, how do you respond to people who, when they say something is bigoted and get confronted, reply they only think it's bad for a specific individual from the community that's receiving said bigotry? This is the Christos Nicolaou questions. Where it's like a mini question essay.
How do you answer that? I think that on the first part, like someone who doesn't care and actively think that bad thing is good, I can never reach those people. At that point, I give up.
Have you considered bad thing good?
Yeah, like because if someone's already so far gone that like something that's like actively bigoted is actually a good thing, then I'm like, cool, you're too far down the rabbit hole, and I am not equipped to help you. There's this idea. I don't know. The left recently has been obsessed with this idea that we have to take every argument, and we're like, we really don't, because like I would not be skilled enough to take that argument. I wouldn't be able to do it. Like I would have someone who is far more like, who's working on like de-radicalization, but like on casual bigotry, which it doesn't happen that much, but probably should deal with that. But on the other hand, only think it's bad for a specific individual from the community receiving such bigotry. Like, if they don't think if they don't think that it causes general harm, like I would sort of present the issue in what's it called? In the context of that you don't always know who can hear the bigotry. You don't always know who is affected by the bigotry. Like you may think it's obvious, but it's not always obvious. And because of that, they are isolating themselves without knowing it. So they may think that like, even though they're saying something, they think that they are that they're doing something bad to only a specific individual. They are actually doing something bad to multiple people, which is isolating them further and like making their opinions worse. Because I would hope that they don't want to do that. Like most people don't want to like inadvertently isolate themselves. So that's sort of like, that can be a bit of a wake-up clock. That's worked for me.
Yup. I don't have much to add to that. You obviously thought about this a lot more than I have, because I'm a dum-dum. I don't think about things as much as I should.
Don't say that. You're very smart.
Yeah, I don't know how to deal with like the casual bigotry that like comes out of, you know, like the people who don't want, like the casual bigotry that comes out of like the people who don't want to change saying slurs because they don't think it means that, because that's just like, or like, you know, or the promoting of media that's got a lot of problems, although that's a lot more nuanced, because like there's a lot of stuff that is very that is entertaining but is got some serious problems if you like acknowledge about the fact of the time they came in and stuff like that, but that's a longer conversation. But yeah, just knowing, I think that what you said about like how, you know, you say that and you might not think that it means that, but keep in mind how other people interpret these kinds of things is a good way to start.
Yeah, because like that way you're not like delegitimizing their own opinion. Like they could, like, in their own logic they could still be right, but you're just adding to that like a wider context rather than like undercutting what they already think. Because that to me is where that's where like a lot of conflict starts. I feel like when you start to argue against the worldview of another person, which, you know, sometimes you have to do that because the worldview is wrong, and it is wrong in this case too. But I just feel it's more effective to sort of like find other avenues to do that.
Yep, sounds good. Now I'm like looking at this suzerain game. I gotta stop. Okay.
Suzerain is good. You should try it. It's really good. It's fucking great.
So many games on Steam. So many I haven't played.
It's a map game that is a map game, but it's like a story, but also a simulator map game, but also a role-playing game. It's weird. It's good.
I can imagine.
A bit obsessed.
All right. What's giving rise to the recent nationalism we're seeing globally? Usually, what's it called? When you see like nationalism has always been around. It's the dominant ruling ideology of like what gives a government legitimacy. But nationalism, like as it's rising right now, is sort of like what happens during times of economic recession, during crises of capitalism, where the belief that keeping the levels of inequality that you have is fine because of like, you know, capitalism is good and everything is being done well, start to break down. And so your typical next step, I think, is like is to move to hyper nationalist stuff. You either go, if it falls out, you either go to the far right into like hyper nationalism, or you go to the far left and go become communists. At least that's what happened in the 30s. And I think we're in a sort of more slow motion version of that again. Like, we're in a depression that has been building since 2007. And the more that we become aware that, like, our lives are getting worse and that the systems that held things up are not just and not equal and don't make things life better for people, you either then have to blame some minority group and try to claim as much as you can for your nation, which is a very fuzzy identity. It's a very fuzzy word. Or you go with anti-nationalism, which is basically being a communist, which is based. And then, what's it called? You gain subscriber.
Subscriber. Post-based become fame.
Yeah.
No, that's a good answer. I would also say that like recently we're also like dealing with like not only like economic insecurity, but like also like massive shift in how our world operates, which also is which is like in addition to that causing insecurity, like because of the way because like we're sort of reordering our entire like world order to an internet age in the last couple of decades, and the way we've done that, we've like that it's causing filter bubbles in a way that's like never really happened before. Like for the vast times of human history, we basically only had a very, very small social circle, and then over time, like as we get new media and as we get like new social interactions, that social bubble has like expanded. Like we get more types of media input, and now we're actually seeing like a narrowing of that social bubble, like in terms of filter bubbles, in terms of the news that we consume. So like we're consuming more content, but it's just the same type of content, which is leading us to be a bit more like just narrow-minded. If that makes sense?
Yeah, and it's in the past, while like this kind of organization on political grounds would have happened based on like communities and stuff like that, now you can have like everyone's views will become more and more extreme, but they're not going to be geographically focused.
Mm.
which we don't. But the thing is, like, a lot of political power is based on having a lot of people who believe the same thing in the same place. And those systems are not jiving super great, and so we don't really have like a way to. So everyone's just pissed off about the way that their world around them is functioning. And I don't really know if there's a solution to that at the moment.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
Someone just asked, "Is this the final crisis of capitalism?"
Nah. Not unless capitalism dies like very soon, and I don't think it will.
Yeah, we've what's it called? I don't. I've become. There's somebody who's trying to. There's like a question later on that's like trying to get you to get mad at me about some stuff I've said during streams in the last week, because I said that basically like capitalism's not going to really be defeated by any popular movement. It's going to be we're either going to go to space and capitalism will be a nightmare that never ends, or we will destroy our planet in hellfire, in which case we might be able to build something better out of the ashes. But it seems that capitalism is just unsurmountable through political channels, and nobody's got the energy to do revolutions anymore.
Yeah, I think that's partially right in one sense. But I'm also just thinking about like how the world looked in like the 1820s. Like that. A lot of people thought the same way about then as well, being like, well, we tried, but it just seems like absolutist power structures are just gonna have to be like basically forever, and only the French can do revolution, and it's not going that well.
Yeah, I guess we do live in a world where if there's one thing to learn in history is that nothing is as stable as you think it is.
Yeah, like I think, like I think that like when capitalism falls, it's going to fall like quick as hell, and it's not going to be in a way that we expect it to happen. I don't think there's going to be like the proletarian revolution, like 1917 version, like as a lot of people sort of hope it will be or think it will be, but. I do think it is more like insecure than what we think it is.
Yeah, I do have thoughts that this century, the crises that are going to come about by the mass creation of climate refugees, like the fact that we're going to have a billion, like several billion people who are going to have to uproot from the places they live and move to other regions, is going to overwhelm virtually the entire nation state system, and we're either going to do atrocities the likes that our never species has never seen before, or we're going to have to do some serious have some serious change. And I imagine that
in either way the system will change.
Yeah, and it's going to happen probably different. It's not going to all happen the same way in the same places. So yeah. That's why, like, the response to, like, the Syrian refugee crisis is really telling, because, like, it's just a taste of what it's going to be like when, large sections of the world become uninhabitable and billions of people are trying to find a new place to live.
Yeah. So, like change will happen one way or another. What comes after this is, like, will depend.
All right, next question we got here. How should the left engage with situations of ethnic groups that were oppressed or persecuted, and this led them to support dictatorial regimes, e.g. Ukrainians in World War II? How does this affect us today, e.g. people from Asian countries supporting Trump because of his anti-China posturing? So the big one that comes up to me on this is, and I'm sure as a online leftist, you've heard this before too, which is you are like, communism is bad, communism is wrong. I know because I'm from Svetsvania that was communist during the Cold War, and I learned everything I needed to know about Marx from bread lines and poverty and everything there, or something like that. You know this argument, right?
Yes, I know that argument.
Um, now to think of an answer. I mean,
this is why I think the like various types of like, I don't know, leftist thought need to be promoted, and like not just this sort of like one monolith of leftist thought, right? How, cause, and I feel like a lot of people fall into this trap where they're like they are communist, and therefore they have to support every single communist regime in the history of the world, and also be advocate for the exact same type of system happening here, no matter of the context. I think that's the mistake, right? I think that you could very well make an argument, and I've done this before as well, where you advocate for a worldview and for a system that basically is the system that you would call like anarcho-communism or communism or whatever system that you're trying to promote. But you don't call it that. You call it like something else, and you present it gradually. Like I think it would be neat if people in workplaces had a say in how their workplace was run. That's pretty cool, I think. And if you present it in that way, then like it takes it away from this sort of like this framing. Because people often have a problem with the framing more than the actual issues. I found like people don't have an issue with like workplace democracy. They have an issue with, like, as you say, like bread lines and communism.
There's also ways to look at like thing is like, because the capitalists won the Cold War, they got to tell the whole narrative. And so, like, you can't, like, because, like, I think if, like, the Soviets won the Cold War, their story of bread lines would be like, yeah, everybody got to stand in line, everybody having an equal chance to get bread, while in America, like, they had people who just couldn't afford bread, so they just starved. Like...
Yeah, so, like, I think that influences it as well. I think it's like, if we... Like, and as you said, like, because the capitalist framing of everything is like the what we have here in the West, in order to like effectively communicate the same ideas, we kind of have to decontextualize them a tiny bit, because, like, you know, a lot of leftist ideas has an image problem. This is just a fact of the situation.
Cold War propaganda.
Cold War propaganda. So the way we can deal with that is like either by doubling down and saying that like Stalin never killed anyone, is an uwu soft boy, I love uwu, or we can say that like we don't have to answer for the crimes of like a tyrannical regime that is in a different political sphere, that in a different like time in history, but I can like argue in favor of like free healthcare and social safety nets and workplace democracy and electoral reform, like step by step, like building communism step by step.
You heard it here first, everybody.
Bit by bit, the pieces fit, the Soviet machine advances.
You heard it here first, everybody. The reason why communism, or the leftist cause, needs to be advanced by us being better at history.
Yes.
That really is. That does like a lot of the roadblocks in the. This is probably another video that I should make. Is that like a lot of the issues in the American left have to do with the fact that they won't confront their history, because they won't confront the history of the labor movement and racism, and how capitalist class has driven a wedge between the working class because of the racial caste system in America. And like, you know, you need to address that if you want to build an actual working class movement, not complain about black people not voting for Bernie Sanders. So
yeah.
and like realizing that these are complicated. Like you have to understand the history in order to overcome, and you'll be expecting this on the new redesigned Step Back channel. That's a Tristan guarantee.
This is why history is the only true social science. This is why philosophy is a scam and only history is good.
Yeah. There's a redesign. I talked about it earlier in the stream, but I'm what's it called? I'm kind of just doing the videos in reverse, where I'm going to, instead of talking about a history topic and then talking about how it applies to today, talking about an issue about today and talking about how history applies to it. I'm disregard edutube, embrace stealing from philosophy tubes.
Reject tradition.
Reject tradition, embrace Abby.
Embrace bisexual lighting.
Yeah,
which is the trope.
I gotta get bisexual lighting just to do it.
It's good. Listen, once you get it, you don't even have to use it for like videos. Like I don't really use it for that many videos anymore, but it's just like good to have. It's just like it's pretty. Once you can have your bedroom be purple, that's it. You never go back.
Yeah. Although it is bisexual appropriation, which I probably shouldn't do. I am
the lights don't know.
I am so depressingly straight. It is
the lights don't know, Tristan. It's all
the lights don't know. It's just
there
light.
we go.
It's just light, everybody. That is actually a very good look.
Right?
Yeah, it's like IKEA meets Cyberpunk. It's great.
All right, that's enough about it. I actually need better lighting for my streams.
Okay. Does the fact that more educated people tend to be more left-leaning and familiar with anti-capitalism, what does that mean for leftist organizing?
That there's a huge blind spot. Because lefty academics love talking in a lefty academic way to other lefty academics about how they're going to build communism, while also ignoring the fact that like 90% of people aren't lefty academics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, there's a history here, because this actually was not always true. Political education used to be done with pamphlets and speeches to people who couldn't even read. They used to pay like kids to go to factories and just read leftist theory to workers. What happened is the 60s. There was the student movement, the late 60s student movement, where left-wing activism moved out of its association with labor politics and moved into its association with a sort of more educated, growing boomer contingent, and they became the next generation of people who wrote and led all of the left-wing politics. But it meant that they lost basically all of their relevance. Doesn't also help that that the old workers' movements, like the old big unions and stuff like that, got actively suppressed by capitalist governments by basically making it a crime to do virtually any form of organizing. So really, academia was the only place where the left could survive. Blaming leftism for becoming too academic it's definitely a thing we need to do today, but we have to understand that it comes out of the fact that academia, because of academic freedom, essentially became the only place where you could organize any form of leftist political talk, because you did it in the workplace, you'd get fired for being a red. Because it was there was times where it was I think it's still true in America, but I don't think it's true in other places, but it's it's unofficially true that it's basically illegal to be a actual communist. If you want to immigrate to the United States, you still have to declare that you have you are not and have never been a member of the Communist Party.
Yes, this is also a thing. I think when I had to travel just to get one of those visa exemption things that a lot of European countries can have. Like it's not even, like I'm not. It's not immigration. It's not even a real visa. But I think it's one of those forms of like, have you ever been involved in a terrorist organization? Have you ever been involved with the Communist Party?
And if you're a
Yeah.
historian, every answer it's like yes or no, and then
Yes.
yes. There's three boxes: yes, no, and then it's just like a big like for the page for your essay.
It's from yes. Well, the history of the Swedish Communist Party is a complicated and long one, starting in the 1886.
And then as you start saying that, they're like, oh, you're a historian. Here's the third paper. Here's the extra pages.
Right.
Here's the foolscap and your number 2 pencil. We have the like they have just like this room that's like for when historians go through the immigration process. Like it's like when you when you have to become a citizen, you have to do the history test, and like they have to be like, oh yeah, well here like, oh you're a historian, yeah, let me just get a few dozen extra pages for you.
You know, when in some countries you get like a plaque or like a document or something, in when they know you're a historian, they just give you like a jacket of tweed. It's just like here, you can have it.
Too soon. R.I.P. Step back jacket. May I don't even know where you are anymore.
I need to get some tweed. Tweed rules.
Yeah, I said I was gonna buy a new tweed jacket, but then we're on. We've been in lockdown now since March of 2020. So, yeah, okay, but yeah, so like in some ways you can say like there's something in some ways you can say that there's an issue with the fact that the left is all stuck in academic circles, which is sort of an aspect of political suppression of left-wing labor-based movements and the Cold War, and also the sort of gap that was created by a whole generation becoming much more educated than their parents in a very short amount of time. And it's not just true in America. It's also like France basically had an entire new constitution written because of this movement. And I'm sure the student movement had its effect on most countries. It's considered a global revolution. Yeah. But unfortunately,
the only reason why Sweden like has any sort of like left movement outside of it is just because like the unions here, and because like we were like outside of like a lot of like Western aligned like movements in the sense of like wanting to play both sides. Even the student movements here were like being supported by, you know, workers unions and things of that nature. It didn't really have to suffer from the suppression itself. So
yeah,
but it's still affected here as well.
This is why, though, in the non-Western world, where they didn't have this process happen because they didn't get a huge economic boom after World War II, because they were mostly colonies at that point, they still have active like labor movements and leftist organization, and still can, you know, field large things. Like one of the largest parties in Nepal is a Maoist party. The Indian Communist Party is huge.
Didn't the Nepalese party also like cause a revolution in Nepal like not too long ago? Because they used to be like an absolute monarchy, and now they're like some sort of like republic, constitutional monarchy, something like that.
Wouldn't surprise me. India has a large and very deep communist tradition, and still has a pretty deep relationship with Russia as a result. And they just recently had the largest strike in history last year. Not the communists, but the farmers. A bunch of farmers had what would be considered the largest strike in human history, where millions of people were resisting sort of these agricultural reforms that were happening. Yeah, so like there is it is all based on a historical understanding of left-wing movements in different countries. And unfortunately, because we're all, you know, present company accepted, we're all all English speakers, you know, as our first language, except for Mia, that's the sphere we live in. And so that's how left-wing politics is described to us. And then of course, like, even like, you know, Swedes, like you guys learn English super, super early. Like, I think it's super rare to meet a Swede who's under a certain age who doesn't know any English. Because you guys started learning English at age 5, isn't it?
Ooh, I don't know about that, but maybe like I think around like age like 11 or 12, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. I knew that like the Scandinavian countries they take the English education very serious and they start really early.
Yeah.
Uh,
It might be, yeah, I think it's, well, when I started it was in year 3, so that would be like, yeah, 10 years old.
okay. Yeah, they'd be about 5th grade here.
Mm.
So that's like so yeah, it's again, you should just do more history. It makes all of these things make a lot more sense and figure out what our next steps are a lot easier. And we need to find a way to because now the working class has developed a culture of radical anti-intellectualism, which was not always the case. We have to find ways to make ideas that are, we have to find a way to talk to each other. As like the first instinct is to like we have to find a way to make our ideas more accessible, and that already is like, oh, that's us talking down to people. You have to we have to find a way to start having useful conversations with people who don't spend all day posting on Twitter about what would Stalin be like if he was a femboy, or other important topics in academic leftist discourse.
Critical political theory, political science going on.
Yeah, that's what continental theory is, as far as I know. That's why Slavoj Žižek's so into it.
Exactly. Following a long tradition of political thought.
Yeah.
The Frankfurt School was famously involved in trying to figure out whether or not Stalin was a femboy. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you know how like Stalin like had Photoshop done to like remove people from his photos? Like if he's like, I'm no longer best friends with Pavel, he is now dead. I'm now best friends with this guy, and they like erased him from the picture. It's like that, except they did it for all of the pictures because he wouldn't take off his cat ears.
He refused to.
Yeah, little known fact. That's a history fact right there.
The history fact right there.
It's why they gave him the hat. They were like, if you're not going to take off the ears, at least put the hat on top of it.
Please put the hat on.
Yeah.
That's why he's smiling also, because he knows that they're under there.
It's a Georgian thing. Okay.
Well,
people think it was from anime, but no, it was from Georgia. Actually, anime also comes from Georgia, but people don't talk about that.
It was invented in Georgia. It's true. In the 1700s.
God damn it. We're going to get ourselves in trouble with someone. I don't know who, but...
Who knows?
Femboys are Hoxaists. How do you pronounce that Albanian Stalin holdout? Hoxha?
Hoxaists. I don't know though fully. I can't do my Albanian pronunciation is a bit weak, unfortunately. But we all know that having a lot of bunkers is critical to femboy theory.
Yeah, like Zoomers. If Zoomers just knew that capitalism is the only thing that separates us from femboy hooters, for example, we would have communism tomorrow. Sorry, I'm just like, apparently my jokes are just dedicated to killing Mia today.
It's good shit, though. It's good.
All right, let's try to see if we can get one more in. If Matt Gaetz was a bigger fish, do you think the GOP establishment would be more willing to protect him? Like, what if he was the governor of Iowa instead of a junior congressman?
Oh, is this the guy who, like, Venmo'd underage girls?
Yeah.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, probably. I mean, if he was higher up, we probably wouldn't have heard of it in the first place, because he would have, like, people who would have, like, spotted this issue, like, 5 months ago and, like, fixed it before it leaks to the public.
Yeah, the Republican, like, establishment is trying to, like, otherize and push out the sort of Trump holdovers, and yeah, Matt Gaetz is one of them, so they're not going to do anything to help him. Especially when they just started. Oh my God! Like the thing they started and then took back within 2 days with Marjorie Taylor Greene about the Anglo-Saxon cultural thing, and everyone was like, "The fuck."
Excuse me. Yeah, that was weird.
All right,
she is Quite a character.
Yeah. First show of the, or a very good example of the, what's it called? The CrossFit to Fash pipeline. Okay.
Her bar lifts. I remember seeing that. That was like
Your poor muscles.
your poor spine.
Yeah.
Marjorie, please.
Marge, please. This doesn't have, this has
Marge.
nothing to do with politics. This is everything to do about your spine.
Please. I don't like you, but your spine doesn't deserve this.
Was the Marshall Plan a form of soft imperialism? I already answered this question in one of my streams, and it wasn't a form of soft imperialism. It was a form of hard imperialism. It was using money to give guns to terrorists to keep capitalism going.
Yeah.
Like one of the largest recipients. One of the largest. I wrote the video for the Cold War channel about the Marshall Plan, and the Marshall Plan, like one of the largest recipients was the Central Intelligence Agency, which had money to actively sabotage the left in Western Europe. All right. Okay, I gotta go. Okay, let's see. A while I went on a trans subreddit and asked them if they were afraid of the futures of young trans people. I think this was around when Trump was elected. One person basically responded with, well, I'm an adult and post-transition now, so I don't really worry about it. Or as we have to call it, the Blair White argument. Is it unusual for trans people to be that indifferent to the plight of other trans people?
I think it varies. I think that varies like quite a lot. I know that there are a lot of people who only really care about, like, there's some trans people who like really care about trans issues, right? And then there are the type of trans person that like does not want to interact with like the trans community at all, does not see it as like as a social identifier at all. They only see it as like a label applied to them because of their transness. But that's it. Have no desire to interact with the community, and therefore like also don't really want to like interact with like any sort of like anything that the community also interacts with, specifically, such as like trans rights and stuff like that. And just wants to be completely disconnected from that. So Blair White does like a type of this where she disconnects herself from the community, but she also interacts with it in order to like shit on it when it like can build her brand. But most people who do this sort of like disconnected approach don't even do that. Like they don't even mention it. They don't have it. They don't want any friends who are trans. They don't want to like interact. They just want a complete separation. And for those people, it is kind of common to like not care, which I think is really unfortunate. But I think that most people are either like more involved in the sort of community approach, or at least like isn't completely separate from it. Like they're somewhere like in the middle. Because I think a lot of people realize that like you can't not care about something because it will care about you eventually. And
yeah,
like once you realize that, then I think people like are more willing to care. But there will always be people who think that like this won't affect me, so I don't give a shit. And those people are selfish. That's just how it is. Like I don't know how to explain to selfish people that they should care about other people.
Yeah, especially because like I don't know, to think that like a trans person in today's day and age would think that their status of civil rights is stable enough that they don't have to worry about being activists for themselves is just like, have you heard of the news? There's this place called England. You should probably look it up.
Yeah, like, and the things happened in England like really quickly too, where it went from like almost no awareness to like a very high social awareness, and also like concerns have been raised, like within a decade. Like, and I think that like a lot of older, like I feel like especially like older trans people, which obviously there aren't a ton of them because of the AIDS crisis, but the people, the elders that we do have, they remember like similar waves happening in the past where there have been like minor shifts in public opinion about trans people before like the tipping point, before like it became super aware that like before like basically everyone knows what a trans person is. And they can see social changes going on right now, and they are also reacting like, hey, shit can go bad real quick. And this is true both in like modern, like in the modern UK, but also like as we've seen historically, like I hate to mention the Nazis, but like the Nazis are such a good example, I gotta mention it.
They were
Like,
the ones, like, they were, like, the first, like, big act of authoritarian nastiness was
yeah,
essentially erasing all of the research done on trans people for the last, like, 20 years and just burning it all.
yeah, like before, like just like weeks after getting elected, just like immediately after getting what's it called, the Enabling Act, I think it was called. Just like immediately after that, like going after trans people and finding like scientific justifications for it and finding like social justifications for doing it. And that's like a decade before that, there was like social growing acceptance within like that severe, like specifically Germany being like, hey, trans people exist maybe, and people are becoming more aware and becoming more socially acceptable. And then like and all of that social progress was like erased, because of the Nazis. Like that shit can happen, but without the entire, without the World War, without the further social implications. Like that tiny shift from just social progress to social elimination can happen like so quick.
Yeah, a lot of these gains are always going to be fragile. It's basically what the what's it called? It's basically what The Handmaid's Tale was about.
Yeah.
All right, before we take off, we're going to raid Rob Russo, who's a journalist based out of DC who does some pretty cool stuff. Why don't you tell everybody where they can consume Mia content?
You can consume Mia content at miamulder.com. That will take you to my YouTube channel, or you can listen to my podcast by searching for Leechfest podcast on basically wherever you listen to your podcasts. We have a Twitter, Leechfest Pod. It's good. We do actually like more direct history there. Sometimes I stream video games on twitch.tv/miamulder. I don't have a schedule right now because I'm busy and work too much and have a hard time like syncing stuff up, but I do that there too. And you can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/potatopolitics, where I rant every day.
Excellent.
Basically.
Well, thank you for coming again, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
And in
How
5
professional
seconds,
we
push
suddenly
the button.
became.
Yeah. Please, I'll be back tomorrow. Take care of yourselves and each other.